Hey guys, this is Brian Hilliard, author of the best-selling book Networking Like a Pro and creator of the popular program How to Get Out of Your Own Way and Unlock the Mindset of Success. Now, I got to tell you, I am fired up here because I've got a good friend of mine, David Andrew. He's coming to us from the UK. He is a coach, speaker, mentor, and author of an upcoming book, 101 Thoughts, How to, let me get this right, Master Your Mind and Conquer Your World. I love that. David, thanks so much for coming over. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian, for inviting me.
Awesome. So tell these guys a little bit about, I know there is so much going on in the world today. You hear about the news, obviously you hear about different things going on. We still have the virus that we're dealing with right now. There are just a ton of things that are kind of happening and doing some of that. Talk a little bit about mindset and how you're able to kind of renew yourself and refresh your mind, because I know that that's something that you talk about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, mindset is what controls us, and the mind is what we control. Basically, it's a very short thing, but mindset is something that we have built over a period of time
Right.
by influences, tradition, cultures, and belief systems. And what we do, it creates a mindset, although we might not think it as a mindset, but that's how we operate, we behave, we interact with people. It's
Right.
basically happening from the mindset that we carry, and it
So
controls our life.
I'm sorry to interject just for 1 second, David, because I love the point you're making. I just want to clarify it, make sure that our listeners got that point that you just made,
Right.
I believe, which was what I heard you say was mindset. What we call mindset is a result of what happens earlier on in our lives. And then it's kind of almost this way of doing things, this lens that we go through. So it's less of something that we're like, oh, well, I need to do this with my mindset, and more of a result of what took place in our previous lives. And then being able to make some adjustments off of that. I just want to make sure I heard that right.
That you got it absolutely right, Brian. And I think that you clarified it even more by saying what you did. It is a result of everything, which eventually becomes our mindset. And as you said, that's how we behave, that's how we work, that's how we do things in life, that's how we treat people, that's how we treat ourselves. And sometimes even without realizing it or being fully aware of our own behaviors, you know and if somebody challenges us or questions us about a certain behavior, we will respond back. We will respond with the mindset that we already carry. It's
Right.
almost like a subconscious bias that we become that way.
That's a really good point because, I think we have a lot of network marketers and stuff listening here today, as you know, and watching direct sales. I love this point, Dave, where you talked about that's how we treat ourselves. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit because a lot of things, I was doing a presentation, let's see, I was in a company call. No, that's not true. It was on a team call. And it was really interesting because some of the questions that came up was a conversation around managing that inner critic. And really, I use the word managing, but it's really silencing that inner critic. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because what I think I'm hearing you say is that, our mindset is kind of like terra firma, and then how we show up is going to be a function of that, right?
Mhm.
And we'll definitely talk about this, but spiritually, and I know this in scripture, they talk about that, the tongue is the conduit to the heart, right? Like who you are, the heart wise, is what comes out vis-a-vis the tongue. There's that word that you like, vis-a-vis. I got it in again. Okay. Vis-a-vis the tongue.
So yeah, I understand what is vis-a-vis now, which is great. Yeah.
being able to get that out there through your from your heart through your tongue is what happens. And I'm hearing you say the same thing in terms of like
Mm.
the mindset is there. So talk a little bit about maybe how we could either feel better about ourselves or maybe silencing the inner critic, however you want to tackle
Mm.
that. I'm just
Mm.
giving you a couple of
Mm.
suggestions, but I love the point, which is that's how we treat ourselves. And I just wanted to
Mm.
dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, and let me just think about how I treat myself,
Yeah,
because
okay,
it
that's perfect.
becomes a lot more easier for me to explain rather than how others are treating themselves, because I
That's fair.
truly don't know.
Right.
I treat myself with, since my renewed mindset over the years, I treat myself very differently to how I used to treat before. So, because you said a sentence, you said silencing your critic,
Yeah, inner critic.
inner critic, and I like to listen to my thoughts, because thoughts are happening, and some thoughts are just passing through. So I don't know what they will come out to. But if those thoughts start to take hold of my thinking in general, then, and if they are going to harm me personally or bring out the worst in me through any triggers, then I should have, or I should be able to silence that before it does any bigger damage to myself
Right,
or anybody else.
right.
So I think it's good to listen to your thinking, if that's a way to put something, but
Mhm.
also to think, if I'm thinking this way, where is this thought coming from?
There we go.
Who's projecting it on me? Is it
Right,
my childhood
right,
trauma?
right,
Or is it something that I have been bullied at work for years?
right,
Or something in the world that doesn't make me feel happy? It could be anything, right? But if we can take it back to where is it coming from,
right.
and then try and understand that and say, should I move forward or should I try and stop this?
I love that. The concept of who is giving me this thought. One of the things I talk about, and I saw this on like a YouTube thing. It was actually an ad, and
Hmm.
I don't remember. It was an Asian man, and that's all I remember. And
Hmm.
he was talking, and he was like, your brain is not meant to make you successful. Okay, so
Okay.
all of our network marketers who are listening here, where
Mm.
they kind of get this inner critic going, the brain is not built for our success. The brain is built for our safety,
Absolutely.
which as far as the brain is concerned, generally speaking, involves staying the same. And in a
Mm.
lot of ways, staying the same is staying in our comfort zone, which anybody
Yes.
who knows anything about anything knows that a surefire way not to become successful in business and in life is to stay within your comfort zone. If you want to make
Yeah.
sure that you don't win games, stay comfortable. And I guarantee you will not win games.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. So one of the things that he was talking about was that the brain is not really, designed to do that. So the concept that I talk about is the brain is an unreliable narrator. I use that
Mm.
as a way of like, it's unreliable narrator, as I'm sure you know, is a literary term, which
Mm.
essentially is just for our listeners. An unreliable narrator is like if you're reading a book, and like let's
Mm.
say it's a murder mystery book, and you're
Mm.
reading, and the narrator saying this person did this person did that, this person did this. Okay, our desire, our just way we've grown up in the Western world is we
Mm.
always believe the narrator. We believe the narrator to be truthful. Okay, an
Mm.
unreliable narrator is a literary term where the narrator of the book is actually lying to you and you don't
Yeah.
know about it. And it's like at the end of
Correct.
the day, turns out he was the killer, but it was a split personality. You never realized it. Okay.
True.
So it's
True.
unreliable narrator. So the
Mm.
point that I'm making here is that I love that idea of who's projecting this on you, because
Correct.
we have a tendency to think it's us. But just like from the movie, the call is coming from inside the house, right? When a stranger calls, the call's coming from inside the house. In a lot of cases, it's either our younger self, it's our defense mechanisms,
Mm,
it's our, to your point, you made the response towards work. In
mm,
the network marketing world, it's definitely response towards rejection.
mm-hmm,
Didn't get this deal, even in business, but we're talking network marketing now, but didn't get this
mm,
recruit, didn't get this deal.
mm-hmm.
It's things like that. And what I heard you say was that you just kind of recognize it and then let it pass through you. But that's also
Right.
a function of things of where you're at now, wouldn't you say? Like it's a function of doing meditation, some spiritual work, which we'll get into. We're not making this a Bible study, but it's true. Some spiritual work that you do.
Mm.
Like, talk to us about how you maybe you alluded to you weren't always in this place, but you're
Yeah.
definitely here now. Talk to
Mm.
us about that transition, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the transition. I never understood the word transition before, say, about 8, 9 years ago. And I did not know in what context if I was going to understand. So I came up, or sort of heard someone speak to me say it's like transiting from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So that's the
Interesting.
transformation. Yeah,
Metamorphosis. Yeah, that's interesting.
metamorphosis. Right. That's a yeah. And although I wanted to make it more practical and real for my life,
Mm-hmm.
so just to give you a quick snapshot of what I did was when I hit rock bottom
Okay.
properly to the
Right.
point of being homeless, suicidal, and in debts.
Right.
So you basically are in a dead end cul-de-sac, right? There's nowhere to go. Either you just stay and rot there till
Right.
the day you die, or you
Right.
start to say, how I'm going to turn back around or find another way to rebuild my
Right.
life. So
Right.
that's when the transition actually began, when I
Okay.
decided to say, I don't want any more of this. This is the
Okay.
end for me as far as
Mm-hmm.
I'm alive today.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to continue to be alive or stay alive, what should I do to have better than what I am right now?
Okay. Okay.
So,
Okay.
so basically, that is something that I began the process, and it took me almost like 6, 7 years to
Okay.
work through stage by stage. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this was something where, to use kind of a spiritual term, you had a road to Damascus moment, and you made the point. If I'm not, I don't want to speak for you. It just, I'm just, you had a
No.
road to
Yeah.
Damascus moment,
Mm.
and you were like, listen, and I think this is true for everybody. I know I haven't had necessarily the experience that you have had. I don't think,
Mm.
but like you have this almost feeling like I know I can do better than this. The way
Yeah.
I tell you how I think is I know I can do better than this, and I actually think to myself, I'm better than this. Like
True.
I actually
True.
think that, like I get that, like if I'm golfing or something. I was actually playing earlier in the week, and you take a swing and you drop one in the lake, right? And you're like, I mean, I know I'm not on the PGA tour, but I'm better than that. So
Yeah. I identify with those dropping the shots in the lake too.
so it's like I might not be on tour, but I'm better than that. And
Correct.
it's being able to kind of turn that around. And
Yeah.
that's getting into, I want to talk about your book for a second. You talk about this 101 thoughts.
Mm.
You want to have a conversation around mastering your mind and conquering your world. Talk
Mm.
to us a little bit about what the book is all about, because it's my understanding that this is kind of like this was downloaded to you. You put it out there, and you've
Yeah.
even categorized it a little bit in terms of making it so that it's easy to understand, easy to resonate, geared towards
Yeah.
peace of mind.
I like the fact that you said it was downloaded. And actually,
Right.
that's exactly what happened to me on the 9th of October. I still remember the date, 2021 at 2:38 a.m.
Right.
Crazy time of the day or night, whatever you want to call it. And I just
Right.
woke up from a sleep and thoughts began to flood into my mind. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where they were coming from. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just like one liners, like quotes and proverbs and just thoughts about everything. So I said, what should I do with this? And I began to scribble it down.
Mm-hmm.
The short end of the story is that I came up with 101 thoughts.
Right.
And that is basically my worldview on life in general,
Right.
right? And basically, because it's all made out of thoughts and how I view the world from my lens, from my paradigm, I wanted to I want to express and share that thought with the wider community, probably the
Right.
world, to say,
Right.
hey guys, these things will happen to us. And sometimes
Right.
we don't know what to do with it. I thought, how do I manage these thoughts?
Hmm.
And the managing bit became to say, what outcomes do I want from this way of thinking? Do
Okay.
I want to see a world a better place? Do I want to see a better community? Do I want to
Okay.
see people being healthy, people
Hmm.
being happier, people finding fulfillment in their jobs? Are they spiritually aware of themselves? So I started to begin to put them in different categories, which was a
Hmm.
little build up as time went by. And
Hmm.
this book is the most easiest read for any human being because you
Right.
can just pick up any page and read as one page only.
Yeah, it's very much of a standalone. So obviously, I've read a review copy of it, and
Mm.
it's very much. I can speak for that. It's very much of a. It's a standalone. It might even be considered a coffee table book, by the way,
Yeah,
where you see it on the coffee table, you pick it up, and you can kind of jump right in to wherever it is you're trying to go.
yeah,
And I love it because it's. And I told you this when we were talking about this earlier in the week. I was like, I love how you can just so like there's something on mindset, right? And there's something on, practical, there's something on business. And the way that I describe it to people is that if you have a chance to get to know David Andrew and just kind of get to know him, spend some time with him, you'll notice that he's really laid back. One of the few people who's probably more laid back than me that I spend time with. And as a result, and people ask you, I know this, how is it that you get like this? And
mm,
and and I because they ask me, like I know, so that I know they're asking you,
mm,
how is it that you do this? What is it that you do? And I know in the network marketing world, we've got a lot of people, usually ladies, who are balancing the kids, balancing
yes,
the
yes.
business, balancing all of these different things that are kind of going on. So, how is it that in that kind of world, how
Mm.
do you recommend or maybe consider to recommend keeping their sanity and balancing all of that stuff without losing themselves in the process?
Right. That's a very loaded question, and I wish I had one size will fix it all. And in all honesty, there probably is a way that you can balance. I use the word harmonize
Okay.
or complement.
Okay.
We all are in a professional life, like yourself, me, my wife, many others, and plus we have our home life and family life. And sometimes we try to compartmentalize and just do one, and then we have to do something else.
Hmm.
But both require our attention.
Interesting.
And human energy, focus, concentration, attention to detail can sometimes becoming a challenging situation.
Right.
And if you put one more in one side, other might suffer or may not get enough the right thing. And that's when the overwhelming situation begins. Like
Right.
kids are screaming because you come home from a busy day at work. Your boss gave you so much that you never planned to do, and he made you do it or she made you do it, and you're coming home and the kids they say, I want my dinner. I want this. Mommy, where's that? Daddy, where's that? And all that thing. Because being a dad myself, so I have experienced this. And you know what? We would just naturally react in our emotional instinct. Our left side
Okay.
of the brain will just snap and say, react, shout, whatever it is, right?
Okay.
And that can eventually take a toll on our
Okay.
mental health. That's the word to use. And we can feel stressed out, anxious, and the cycle repeats.
Right.
And we probably react differently in a professional environment. We are a bit more subdued, bit more tolerant.
Right.
Then we
Right.
unleash all that onto your family. And some
Right.
people might just unleash it on both sides. We don't know.
Right. Right.
Mine was to unleash my emotions more when I got home. So my family was unfairly had to deal with my emotions when they never did anything toward it. They were just demanding what they normally demand. But I
Right.
was not in the mindset, capable things to manage or to handle that. So it was
Right.
just reaction. And it was, I think on the long run, it can become a bit destructive to
Yeah.
tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and also I love what I heard there, where you talk a little bit about like the idea that we try to compartmentalize them. Okay.
Mm.
And how, in what I'm hearing you say, and I agree with this if I heard it correctly, is it's life is not as a conversation about compartmentalization. It's a, I had one person say to me, stupid. She's like, you need to stay in your lane, And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
relevant to driving. Yeah, I get it when you're
right,
driving
right,
a car,
right,
dangerous.
right. I'm like, you're stupid. That's fine. I didn't even, you're stupid. That's fine. So, so what you have to do, what you have to do is you have to be able to, you have to be able to create an environment where you're able to deal with all of these. We're talking about
Mm.
balancing. And I think for me personally, that's why the meditation comes in. For me
Yeah.
personally, that's where the spiritual element comes in. For
Mm-hmm.
me personally, that's where the exercise and the walking comes in. For
Mm-hmm.
me personally, that's where the, communicating. And I think that's also a big thing. We haven't really talked about that because that's more
Mm.
skill set. But the
Mm.
other thing too is like when you see, I'll speak for myself. When I see something going on at the home life, and I'm like, you know what, this isn't really conducive for my success for whatever reason. Let's talk. It doesn't do anybody any good to not talk about that. You talk about that with your
Mm.
spouse. I talk
Mm.
about that with my girlfriend. I'm like, look, we talked about that like 10 minutes, well, not 10 minutes ago, because we've been on the call for a little while, but a half hour ago,
Mm.
there were some things that's like, listen, honey, maybe we can do it this way versus that way. And she's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But here's how you can get what you want
Mm.
without being so
Mm.
disruptive, potentially from my perspective, to the rest of the
Mm.
house. And she's like, okay. You know what I mean? So being able to have something where you're coming across in a manner that people understand and that you can communicate, I
Mm.
think makes a really, really, really big difference. And this gets me to be perfectly honest with you, this gets me to one of my favorite subjects I love talking with you about in general, which is integrating your faith into your business. And really, it's integrating your business into your faith, by the way, but
Mm.
being able to integrate faith into your business, into your life. Talk to us about how, as a spiritual person, and I know we have some other people who are spiritual on here. And if you're not, give us a listen just to see. We're not
Mm.
trying to convert you. Just give us a listen. Maybe,
Mm.
you'll pick
Mm.
something up if you want to. But
Mm.
in terms of from a spiritual standpoint, I know I mention it when I'm speaking. I'll talk about it, and it kind of comes through when I'm talking. I hope it does. I think it does. How do you? I had even a woman asked me a question about it. She asked me what Bible verses I read specifically. How do you, as a person of faith,
Wow.
have that be out there without
Mm.
necessarily turning it into what some people think of as like 12th century France?
Mm. 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 I completely get you, and it is. I mean, I could talk about faith on its own and how it works in a human life. But the problem comes, as you said, the moment we try to make it very religious or trying to convert somebody from one faith to the other,
Right,
that's when the tension begins and the
right,
listening completely stops and all the barriers come up.
right.
But I want to try and help today, if I can, as a guest speaker, to bring down the barriers, if you can,
Right,
by not blocking everything out just because it mentions the word God or
right,
universe or anything else. Because at the end of the day, you know what, spirituality, soul, these are all, they're not tangible, right? They are felt. They are more felt than touched. And the thing is that for me, you asked me about my spiritual thing. For me, my spirituality became a driving force now, today, as I stand and I speak today, is my driving force to everything I do. How
okay,
do I integrate that into my work? It is part of who I am as a
Okay.
person.
Okay.
And the spirituality, like you said, it calms you down. It makes you
Right.
become more reflective, self-reflective, taking making yourself accountable for your own actions,
Hmm.
not necessarily being challenged or judged or critiqued by somebody else. But
Hmm.
but before anybody can do that to you or does it, you say, you know what, why did that person said this to me? That you get, Dave, you get always very angry if we ask you something, and maybe I do get angry.
Right.
Rather than being defensive about it, say, hey, you know what, I wonder if I'm really angry. I'll ask that person the question, you know what, when do I become angry? Because maybe I don't realize it. Maybe my tone of voice changes, my body language changes. So there are many ways to become self-reflective. And something that you said, like you meditate, you go for a walk, you just be still, you just relax, enjoy the
Right.
nature.
Right.
These are something that your senses pick up on, whether you are actively looking for those things or not, you know.
Hmm.
And I began to do that as a practice. I
Hmm.
started off and it's become like a lifestyle now. So I
That's
don't
a good
think,
point.
yeah, I don't sort of do it, oh, intentionally. I must go for a walk now. It's like 6 o'clock in the or 7 o'clock in the morning. No,
Right. Right.
it just becomes your lifestyle. The more it becomes a lifestyle,
Right.
it harmonizes into your functionality, your external work, your integration, interaction with people. It all plays together. It's a very sort of a holistic way to do a lot of these things. And these are trained. You have to train your mind, as we were talking about,
Hmm.
by how do I do these things? Who do I ask for help at the
Hmm.
beginning because I'm not used to it? Let me see, do I need these things in my life to make
Hmm.
me function more as a better person that I love to be myself? And I want to be able to say, how does this make me feel? How does this make David feel when he looks in himself in the mirror? What does he say to David? Hey, Dave, you know what, you're a great guy, but hey, maybe certain areas people have been talking about it, think about it and take that time, you know.
I, I
And,
I love that. Just to interject just for a second, because
mm,
I think
mm,
that's you. I want to get back to that lifestyle point that you made
mm.
there too. That's a part of your lifestyle,
It
like right,
is. It
like
is.
like it's a part of how. And I talk about who you be. It's
Mm.
like and I'm not the first person who talked about that, but I just do like talking about it. Which is
Right.
it's a lifestyle. It's a who you be. So I was talking with Deb about this. One of the things that I was doing, there's an app that I use that helps me monitor the caloric intake, like what I eat and the
Oh,
caloric
right.
intake.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It was a guy by the name of Paul Ravella, maybe about
Mm,
6, 7 months ago. He's
mm.
like, look, if you want to have a serious conversation about burning fat and replacing it with muscle, you need to start with what you're putting in your body in the first place.
Absolutely.
I thought that was a really good idea. And I'm a plant-based diet man
Mm,
myself, but he
mm,
was he was talking about the idea of actual straight up calories. So as a grown man,
mm.
1900 calories is what I need. He says if you go
Right.
over that, you're going to have challenge. If you go under
Mm,
that, you're going to be better off. Let's figure out what you can do. So
mm,
anyway, long story short, I was talking with her about that because I was at the dinner table. I was like, okay, here, here, here. Okay, got it, got it. And she's like, well, I'm surprised. She said something like, I'm surprised you're still doing that, or like, why do you still do that? Because I've been doing it for a while. And what I said to her is, actually, I don't need to do it anymore. It helped me for probably the first 3 weeks because I didn't know the caloric impact of what I was eating. Okay.
mm.
But after that, now it's just become a lifestyle. Like if you said, Brian, you can't use that app, I'd be like, Brian, you can't have your pedometer watch to count your
Mm,
steps. Brian, you can't be keeping track of how much water you put in your body. Like
mm,
that would be hard for me to do. Like it's because it's a part of the lifestyle. And I think the
mm,
point that I'm hearing you make there is that your faith and back to earlier point, who you be is so
mm.
much a part of your lifestyle that
Correct.
it's just how it shows up. So like what that looks like in the network marketing world, that's not doing an impromptu Bible study. Okay,
No.
that's not like, right, it's not like, oh, you know what, let's go do a show like from
Mm,
the like the Brady Bunch, let's do a
mm,
show. It's not
mm,
that. Okay.
mm,
We all of a sudden whip out in a rendition of Jesus Christ Superstar, right? Like this is not
no,
what we're
no,
talking about.
no.
If people are who you be and how you show up, people see it.
Correct.
You don't have to send an email. You don't have to do a funny post or GIF or whatever they call it. They
Mm,
just see it.
mm,
So, in the network marketing world, if you're coming from a place of faith, which I'm hoping people are, that
mm,
comes in. Let me talk about how that shows up. That shows up in integrity, doing what you
mm.
said you're going to do. That
Correct.
shows up in consistency, doing what you said you're going to do to yourself. That's upholding your own
Agreed.
commitments.
Yes.
That
Yes.
comes up, that shows up in terms of communication. You alluded to that, Dave, where you talked
Yeah.
about, like, not making the other person wrong and being, some of those different things. That
Mm,
shows up in mindset, in terms
mm,
of how you think about yourself and taking the time to renew yourself. That
mm,
shows up in terms of accountability, which is part of mindset, but that
mm,
shows up in accountability. And I'll even throw in openness as a
mm,
rider clause to that,
mm,
which is, what can I do to be better? So it's not is this constant blame. It's not this victim. It's not this counterclaim. It's not this obfuscation. Okay.
mm.
We have an entire political major party here in the United States. That's all they seem to do. Okay. But like, it's none of that. It's being able to come from a place of, what do I need to do to show up differently, maybe better? And how can I make sure that I have the accountability, whether it's from God, my spouse, or from the Bible itself, to make sure that I have that accountability to move forward? That's how
Correct.
you get it. And that's how you show up. And then people want to ask you about it. And they ask you not, hey, by the way, what's your favorite Bible verse? What they ask you in a business standpoint is, how
Mm,
can I be more like you? What they ask you is, how can I join your team? What they
mm,
ask you is, can I sign up to be a customer of yours? What they
mm,
ask you is, hey, maybe you can come speak to us at our women's group, because I don't know what it is exactly, but it just seems like you might have something.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think you made me realize a lot more about how I how I manage my lifestyle, because you articulated very well. For me, this is like opening a tap, drinking a glass of water. Right? I don't think twice, or I put a light switch on and the light comes on. Right?
Right,
You know, and those who are want to do what we do and want to live this life of peace and balance and harmony and all the rest of it, right? There is always a starting point,
okay,
right? Starting point, a process, consistent process with
right,
support, help, etc. And then working towards a finish line of some sorts, whatever
yeah,
your goals are. And coaches are normally, that's how they take their client through a coaching process.
right,
And I always say to my clients, listen, I am not going to wave a magic wand on you today and you'll become well tomorrow.
right, right,
Neither doing what I'm saying will help you tomorrow. It's a process. It's
right,
like you go to the gym, you don't build up big muscles in a week. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. And
right,
then
right,
you talked about what you're eating. So you see how it all starts to, it's a 360 view on
right,
everything.
right,
And you know what? I've learned for myself, and I say this to my wife as well, honey, at the end of the day, you know what? I am responsible for my life and how I want to navigate through this life and how I
right,
want to feel,
right,
irrespective of what's happening around the world, the challenges, the chaos, the uncertainties, whatever is going on. I can't change that by even being myself. People will not change out there. What I
right,
do is I learn to manage myself through those challenges where I
right,
become very good at it. And what happens is, like, you're a sports person, right? We have obstacles on the golf course,
right,
lakes, bunkers, rough, out
right.
of bounds. And
The
sometimes the
green
ball,
superintendent.
yeah, and they are there deliberately put
Yes, they are.
there
The course
to
superintendent.
test you
Right.
how good you can avoid a happening there, getting there. But when you get there, you learn a trick shot. Like I was hitting behind a tree.
Yeah.
I know I couldn't get to the hole, so I had to just make it playable,
Right.
right? So that's an intelligent, wisdom way of doing
Right.
things, you know.
Right.
So I think I made my point by saying that let's become more focused on navigating through challenges out there, which are outside our control. And the mindset is how we let that controls our life. Mind is what we control. Like we take control of our own mind and
Right.
make adjustments as we go along.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, let's finish this baby up. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of, you're renewing you're renewing your mind. It's a transformational process as well.
Mhm.
Again, we talked a little bit about your book, but in terms of how people can view that particular resource and how they can work through it, like if you were to say, listen, if you buy my book or if you swing by my website or if you do, here's what you're going to get as a result of this. You're going to get, a peace of mind. You're going to do this. Talk to us about what people will get, whether they get your book
Right.
or not, whether they go to your website,
Right.
whether they hear you
Yes.
speak.
I mean, I love that you're already speaking into my book because the book has yet to go to a publisher and the publisher has to accept it, right?
Oh, that's
But
fine.
yeah, but what I am more interested in and what I'm more excited about is that when people say go to David Andrew Coaching or ask
Right,
Siri or Google or Alexa, say, hey, David Andrew Coaching, and I'll just come up, right, on
right,
their
right,
thing. And what they'll find me is like an ordinary guy who calls himself what he calls himself from a
right,
business perspective. But what I help, the best way I can help people is to make everything relatable to the truth around us so
okay,
they can identify themselves. So in a discovery session, for example, right? Let's have an informal chat. Just let's get to know each other and let's see, what, let's talk about this. And if I feel that can genuinely help this person, then I will say, what, I can really help you because in my discovery session, I come up with this idea. I don't know, it has worked. They will score a certain points with me, which is called 7.5.
okay,
Basically, I'll ask them 3 or 4, 5 questions. Then
okay,
I'll say, what, this person is ready for coaching,
okay,
right? That means this will qualify you now to enter an audition for Olympics, for example. You're not going
right,
to be an Olympic runner straight away, but working
right,
with me will get you to that point. And that building process as a coach, I help people around their journey. And I've been very successful. I self-coached myself. I said, I have to practice what I'm going to help people do.
right,
Right. So it's not, nothing is prescriptive there. It's
right,
more about what is it that you want to do, that you will
right,
do it tomorrow, day
right,
after tomorrow, a week
right,
later, a
right,
month later.
right.
That's how I work with people.
Well, that is awesome. So we can find you at davidandrewcoaching.com, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, just David
Okay.
Andrew Coaching. If you ask Google, just type it into Google, or just ask Siri or anything else, and I will come up on the
Okay.
website.
Well, this was really, really good. I've been looking forward to this. I know we've been talking about it for probably 3 months, but the idea of, renewing your mind, getting yourself back on track, dealing with all the things that are going on, and applying this both to your business and personal lives, like we've
Mm.
alluded to. I love that. This was a really good call. And I think hopefully people got some good stuff out of that because I certainly did myself. And also, I love how we talked about your faith too, because I think that's a big thing. I think people think that, again, that is some type of like 12th century France type of conversation. And it's not, you know
Not
what I
at
mean?
all.
It's like, what is it that you can do in order to bring people and, and show people who it is you're doing? And really, it's not even about the other people. It's about how you show up in your own life and then obviously reflect it from there. So that's some really, really good stuff. David, listen, this was awesome. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate it.